Refused to go on our family vacation because my sister invited her new boyfriend, my ex-husband, who abused me. "We'll just give your ticket to Mark," she said, and our parents sided with her. So I canceled all the tickets and... My name is Amber, and at 29 I'm what most people would call successful. I have a great job at a marketing firm, a nice apartment in the city, and enough money to live comfortably. What I don't have anymore is a husband, and honestly, I'm better off without him. I divorced Mark just over a year ago, after 3 years of what I can only describe as hell. We met at a friend's party when I was 25. He was charming, funny, and seemed to have his life together. 6 months later, we were married, and that's when everything changed. Almost immediately after our wedding, Mark started hanging out with a new group of friends. These guys were bad news, always drinking, never working. Soon enough, Mark was coming home drunk most nights. When I confronted him about it, he'd get angry. Not just annoyed, but scary angry. There were threats. Things I never thought I'd hear from someone who claimed to love me. For too long, I put up with it, I made excuses, I tried to help him. Then came that final night when he stumbled in at AM, reeking of alcohol. "I got fired," he slurred, collapsing onto our couch. Something in me snapped. "That's it, Mark. I'm filing for divorce. I can't do this anymore." What happened next is something I still have nightmares about. He lunged at me, his face contorted with rage. I won't go into details, but I ended up with bruises all over my body and a sprained wrist. When he finally passed out, I ran to my friend Kelly's apartment down the block. From there, I called the police and went to the hospital to document my injuries. The divorce was quick. Mark moved out, was ordered to take anger management classes, and I tried to piece my life back together. My parents and my younger sister Lily were there for me through it all. At least, I thought they were. Last month, during a family dinner at my parents' house, they brought up the idea of a family vacation in Florida. Just the 4 of us, me, my 26-year-old sister Lily, and my parents, Robert and Susan. "We thought June would be perfect," Mom said, eyes sparkling with excitement. "Can you imagine? 2 weeks of sun, sand, and ocean." Dad cleared his throat. "We were hoping you could handle the plane tickets and hotel rooms, Amber. You know our situation isn't the best right now." It wasn't an unusual request. My parents struggle financially, Dad's small hardware store barely stays afloat, and Mom's part-time job at the library doesn't bring in much. Lily works as a receptionist and is always complaining about being broke. Meanwhile, I make good money as a marketing director. "Sure, I can do that," I said without hesitation. I was used to helping them out financially. Just last month, I'd paid for Dad's car repairs and Lily's dental work. Mom clapped her hands together. "Oh, I can't wait to swim in the ocean. It's been years since we've had a proper vacation." Over the next 3 weeks, I got everything in order. I arranged for time off work, booked 4 plane tickets to Miami, reserved hotel rooms, a double for my parents and singles for Lily and me. I even bought a new swimsuit and started researching restaurants and attractions in the area. 1 week before our departure date, I got a text from Mom. "Need to talk. Please come for dinner tonight. Important." Her message worried me. Had something happened? Was someone sick? I texted back that I'd be there after work and spent the rest of the day distracted, wondering what could be so urgent. When I arrived at my parents' modest suburban home that evening, I was surprised to find not just Mom and Dad waiting, but Lily too. She was practically bouncing with excitement, a huge smile plastered across her face. "What's going on?" I asked, looking between them. "Is everything okay?" They exchanged glances. "Let's talk over dinner," Dad said, ushering me toward the dining room. Mom had made my favorite lasagna, which immediately put me on edge. In our family, favorite meals usually preceded difficult conversations. "So," I said, once we were all seated, "what's this urgent matter we need to discuss?" Dad took a deep breath. "Well, honey, there's been a slight change of plans for our Florida trip. We're adding 1 more person," Mom continued, not quite meeting my eyes. Lily couldn't contain herself any longer. "I'm engaged," she blurted out, holding up her left hand to show off a modest diamond ring, "and my fiancé is coming with us to Florida." "Oh," I said, genuinely surprised but happy for her. "Congratulations, Lily. I didn't even know you were seeing someone. Seriously, who's the lucky guy?" The room went quiet. My parents looked at each other nervously. Lily's smile turned smug. You know him pretty well, actually, she said, her voice dripping with satisfaction. It's Mark. My fork clattered onto my plate. Mark? My ex-husband, Mark? Lily nodded, her smile never faltering. We've been dating for 3 months. He's changed, Amber. He's not the person you were married to. The room started spinning. My ex-husband, the man who had beaten me, the man I still had nightmares about, was now engaged to my little sister. And my family was acting like this was normal, like it was something to celebrate. You can't be serious, I said, looking frantically between my parents. You know what he did to me, Mom? You were in the courtroom during our divorce. Amber, Mom said with a sigh, you always exaggerate everything. What happened between you and Mark was just a typical marriage spat that got out of hand. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. A spat? Mom, you saw me in the hospital. You saw the bruises all over my body. How can you say that? Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair but said nothing. Lily rolled her eyes dramatically. Mark told me everything, she said, leaning forward. He said you were the abusive one, that you hit him regularly, and he was just defending himself that night. He didn't mean to hurt you. A laugh escaped me, a harsh, bitter sound. Are you kidding me? I'm 5 feet 4 inches and weigh 110 pounds. Mark is 6 feet 2 inches and built like a linebacker at 200 pounds. How exactly would I overpower him? Lily shrugged. I believe my fiancé. Your fiancé, I repeated, the words tasting like poison. The man who threatened me. The man who put me in the hospital. The past is the past, Dad finally spoke up. Mark's been going to his anger management classes. He's sober now. People change, Amber. I pushed my plate away, my appetite completely gone. I'm not going on vacation with him, that's final. My parents exchanged another look, and my stomach dropped. Well, Mom said slowly, we thought you might feel that way, and we respect your decision. But we're still going, Dad added. We'll just give your ticket to Mark. Lily nodded enthusiastically. And you'll need to rebook the hotel rooms. Instead of 2 singles, just book a double for Mark and me. For a moment, I couldn't speak. The betrayal was so complete, so unexpected, that it knocked the wind out of me. These people, my family, were choosing my abuser over me. They were asking me to pay for his vacation. Let me get this straight, I said, my voice eerily calm. You want me to cancel my own vacation, which I've already arranged time off work for, and instead pay for my abusive ex-husband to go in my place? I stood up from the table. My hands were shaking, but I was determined not to break down in front of them. You know what? I need to go. I grabbed my purse and jacket, moving toward the door. No one tried to stop me, no one called out, they just let me walk away. The drive home was a blur. I kept expecting tears to come, but instead, I felt a cold, hard anger building inside me. By the time I reached my apartment, I knew exactly what I was going to do. I poured myself a generous glass of wine and sat down at my computer. First, I canceled all 4 plane tickets to Miami. Then I canceled my hotel reservations. I took screenshots of each cancellation confirmation and attached them to text messages to both Mom and Lily. Vacation plans canceled. All reservations were in my name, so they're now void. Have a great June. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. Yes, I'd lose the deposit money, but it was worth it to know that they wouldn't be enjoying a vacation at my expense while excluding me. It took exactly 15 minutes for my phone to start blowing up. First Mom called, then Lily, then Dad. I ignored them all, setting my phone to silent and enjoying my wine. When I finally checked my messages an hour later, what I saw only confirmed I'd made the right decision. From Mom, how could you do this to your family? You're a terrible daughter, selfish and spiteful. We're better off without you in our lives. From Lily, you jealous bastard, you lost the best man in the world, and now you can't stand to see me happy with him. You're dead to me. I snorted at Lily's message. Mark, the best man in the world. She had no idea what she was in for. Oddly enough, I felt relieved as I blocked their numbers. For years, I'd been their emotional and financial support. I paid for emergencies, listened to their complaints, solved their problems, and for what? For them to turn on me the moment it suited them? A week passed, I kept my vacation time approved at work, but hadn't decided what to do with it. Then, while mindlessly scrolling through social media one evening, I saw a post from Lily. There they were, Lily, Mom, Dad, and Mark, standing in front of my parents' house, luggage at their feet. Lily's caption read, "Off on our real family vacation. Just the important people. No dead weight." Several relatives had commented, asking where I was, and why Mark was there. I didn't respond to any of the confused messages I received from extended family and friends. What could I say? That my family had chosen my abuser over me? That they'd erased the violence I'd experienced? It was too humiliating. Instead, I made a decision. I wasn't going to sit at home while they enjoyed themselves, even if it was at a cheaper destination. I booked a last-minute deal to Cancun, Mexico. 2 weeks of sun, sand, and solitude. As my departure date approached, I felt a mix of emotions. Anger at my family's betrayal, sadness at what I'd lost, but also, strangely, a sense of freedom. No more family obligations. No more being the responsible one. For 2 weeks, I would answer to no one but myself. The morning of my flight, I deactivated my social media accounts and set an out-of-office response on my email. I wasn't going to spend my vacation checking for updates or messages. This was my time. As the plane took off, I leaned back in my seat and closed my eyes. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt the tension leaving my body. Whatever drama was unfolding with my family and Mark, it wasn't my problem anymore. Mexico was exactly what I needed. I spent my days lounging on pristine beaches, swimming in crystal-clear waters, and exploring Mayan ruins. At night, I dined alone at beachfront restaurants, enjoying fresh seafood and margaritas. For 2 weeks, I didn't check my email or social media. I barely even used my phone except to take photos of sunsets and cenotes. The resort I stayed at was adults only, which meant no screaming kids and plenty of peace. I made casual acquaintances, a couple from Canada, a solo traveler from Australia, but mostly kept to myself. I read 4 novels, got a golden tan, and for the first time in ages, slept without nightmares. It wasn't until my flight home that I turned my phone back on. The moment it connected to service, it exploded with notifications. Dozens of missed calls from my parents' landline, from numbers I didn't recognize, and even from a few concerned friends. Text messages filled my screen. The most recent one was from my mother, sent just yesterday. "Call me as soon as you get this emergency." I almost ignored it. After all, their idea of an emergency was probably that Lily broke a nail, or that they needed money for something. But a nagging feeling in my gut made me dial Mom's number once I was settled in my apartment, unpacked and showered. She answered on the first ring. "Amber, is that you?" "Yeah, Mom. What's the emergency?" I kept my voice cool and detached. "Oh, thank God. We've been trying to reach you for days." She sounded genuinely distressed. "It's about the vacation. And Mark, I'm not interested in hearing about your wonderful family time with my abusive ex," I said, reaching to end the call. "No, wait." Mom's voice rose. "It was a disaster. Amber, you were right about him." That stopped me. "What happened?" The story tumbled out. They'd gone to a budget beach resort in South Carolina. The first day had been fine, checking in, enjoying the pool, having dinner. But on the second night, Lily had gone back to the room early with a headache while my parents and Mark went to the hotel bar. "He said he was going to the bathroom," Mom explained, "but he was gone for over an hour. Your father went to check on him and couldn't find him." Eventually, Dad had gone back to the room to check on Lily, only to find her crying hysterically. She'd walked in on Mark in bed with one of the hotel staff, a young woman who'd checked them in earlier. "There was a huge scene," Mom continued. "Mark started screaming at Lily, calling her names. When your father tried to intervene, Mark shoved him. He threatened all of us, said we'd regret crossing him. Then he just left, packed his things and disappeared with that woman." I wasn't surprised, but I was surprised that they seemed surprised. "Well, you got what you signed up for. Mark's always been Mark." "That's not all," Mom said, her voice dropping. "The next morning, your father and I discovered charges on our credit cards, thousands of dollars." "But how?" "We keep our PINs written down in our wallets," Mom admitted sheepishly. "Mark must have seen them. He made large cash withdrawals from both our cards before he left." I couldn't help it. I laughed. It wasn't funny, not really, but the irony was too much. "So you're telling me that my abusive ex-husband, who you all defended and chose over me, not only cheated on Lily but also robbed you?" "We were wrong, Amber," Mom said quietly. We're going to file charges against him for the theft, but," she hesitated, "we need help. We don't have any money for the trip home, and the credit card companies won't reimburse us until the investigation is complete." And there it was, the real reason for the call. Not to apologize, not to make amends, but to ask for money. "Let me get this straight," I said, feeling surprisingly calm. "You disowned me. You called me terrible names. You chose my abuser over me. And now you want me to bail you out?" "We're family, Amber," Mom said, as if that explained everything. "No," I replied. "You made it very clear we're not family. You told me I was dead to you. I'm not giving you a cent." I hung up and immediately blocked their numbers. Over the next few days, I received calls from aunts, uncles, and family friends, all telling me how my parents and sister were struggling, how they needed my help, how family should stick together. I blocked each number as the calls came in. Then they started showing up. First at my apartment, where the doorman refused to let them up based on my instructions. Then at my office, where security escorted them out. It was exhausting and embarrassing, but I held firm. "Miss Mitchell," my office's security guard said after removing my father from the premises for the second time, "would you like us to add your family members to the permanent deny list?" I nodded, feeling a strange mix of sadness and resolution. "Yes, please. And thank you for handling this so discreetly." I did the same at my apartment building, asking the concierge to never allow my parents or sister inside. It felt extreme, but necessary. They'd shown they had no boundaries, no respect for my feelings or experiences. As weeks passed, I heard through the grapevine what was happening with them. Mom and Dad had borrowed money from relatives to pay off their credit cards. They'd filed a police report against Mark, but with little hope of recovering their money. Lily was seeing a therapist, apparently devastated by both Mark's betrayal and my abandonment of the family. I felt nothing. Maybe that makes me cold, but after everything I'd been through, the abuse from Mark, the gaslighting from my family, the betrayal of my trust, I was empty of sympathy for them. One evening, while having dinner with my friend Kelly, the same friend who'd sheltered me the night I fled from Mark, she asked the question everyone seemed to be dancing around. "Do you think you'll ever reconcile with them? They are your family, after all." I considered it, taking a sip of my wine. "I don't know," I answered honestly. "Right now, I can't imagine it. They didn't just make a mistake, Kelly. They saw my bruises. They heard my stories. They knew what Mark did to me. And they still chose him." As I walked home that night, I felt lighter than I had in years. For so long I'd carried the weight of my family's needs, their expectations, their problems. Now, that weight was gone. I was responsible only for myself, answerable only to myself. 3 months have passed since that phone call with my mother. Fall has arrived, bringing cooler temperatures and changing leaves. My life has settled into a comfortable rhythm: work, exercise, dinner with friends, weekend outings. I've even started dating again, nothing serious, just coffee or dinner with interesting men who make me laugh. Last week, I was promoted to Senior Marketing Director, a position that came with a substantial raise in my own office. I celebrated by buying myself a pair of ridiculously expensive shoes I'd been eyeing for months. Before, that money would have probably gone to helping my parents replace their ancient water heater or bailing Lily out of credit card debt. I still hear about my family occasionally. My cousin Jamie calls every few weeks, careful not to push for reconciliation but keeping me updated. Dad had a minor health scare, high blood pressure, nothing serious, but it required medication. Mom picked up more hours at the library. Lily moved back in with them, after breaking her lease. Apparently she couldn't afford the rent on her own. Most significantly, the police investigation into Mark's theft had gone nowhere. He'd disappeared completely, likely with his hotel fling, and hadn't used any traceable cards or accounts since. My parents' bank refused to cover the fraudulent withdrawals since my parents had written down their PINs, a clear violation of the bank's security policy. "Your mom asked about you again?" Jamie said during our last call. "She wanted to know if you'd changed your number." "I haven't," I replied. "I just don't answer their calls." Jamie hesitated. "Lily's been having a rough time. She's been diagnosed with depression." I felt a brief pang of sympathy, quickly squelched by the memory of her smug face as she announced her engagement to Mark. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and meant it. I didn't wish suffering on my sister, despite everything. But I'm not ready to be there for her. "I understand," Jamie sighed. They really messed up. Yes, they did. After that call, I sat on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city lights blink on as dusk settled. Part of me wondered if I was being too harsh, too unforgiving. Wasn't family supposed to be about second chances? But then I remembered my mother's face as she dismissed my bruises as exaggeration. I remembered my father's silence as he let it happen. I remembered Lily's vicious text messages and social media posts. No. I decided I wasn't being too harsh. I was finally valuing myself enough to set boundaries. My therapist, yes, I started seeing one after all this drama, says that's healthy. You're not cutting them off out of vengeance, she told me during our last session. You're protecting yourself from people who've shown they can't be trusted with your well-being. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd gone on that Florida vacation as planned. Would Mark have still shown his true colors? Would my family have finally seen him for what he was, or would they have continued to make excuses for him? Would I have spent 2 weeks pretending everything was fine while dying inside? I'll never know, and honestly, I'm glad. Canceling those reservations was the best decision I could have made, even if it wasn't for the right reasons at the time. Yesterday, I received a letter in the mail, actual paper mail, handwritten, with a local postmark. It was from my mother. I recognized her neat teacher-like script on the envelope. I almost threw it away unopened. But curiosity got the better of me, and I found myself sitting at my kitchen counter, carefully slicing the envelope open with a knife. Dear Amber, it began. I don't know if you'll read this, but I had to try one more time. The letter was long, 4 pages of my mother's handwriting, front and back. She wrote about how wrong they'd been, how blind. She detailed the ways Mark had manipulated Lily, gradually isolating her from friends, filling her head with lies about me and about their relationship. She described how, after he left them stranded at that hotel, they found a small bag of pills in the room, drugs they hadn't known he was taking. We should have believed you, she wrote. There's no excuse for what we did. We betrayed you in the worst possible way, and we're living with that knowledge every day. She didn't ask for money. She didn't ask for forgiveness. She just asked if, someday, I might be willing to talk. She included her new cell phone number at the bottom of the last page. I folded the letter and put it back in its envelope. Then I placed it in my desk drawer, not ready to respond, not ready to decide. This morning, I woke up and made coffee, checking my calendar for the day's meetings. I had lunch scheduled with Kelly, a client presentation in the afternoon, and dinner with Alex, a man I'd been seeing casually for a few weeks. As I sipped my coffee on the balcony, watching the sunrise paint the sky in pinks and oranges, I felt content. Not happy, exactly. There was still a sadness in me for what I'd lost, or rather for what I'd never really had. A family that would choose me. Parents who would protect me. A sister who would believe me. But I had built a good life for myself. I had friends who supported me, a career I enjoyed, a home that felt safe. I had freed myself from the obligation to constantly rescue people who wouldn't do the same for me. Will I ever call the number my mother left in that letter? I don't know. Not today. Probably not tomorrow. Maybe not for months or even years. I'm no longer angry, not white-hot angry anyway. That's progress, I suppose. But I'm not ready to let them back into my life. Trust, once broken so thoroughly, isn't easily repaired. And I'm not sure I want to put in the effort to repair it. For now, I'm focusing on myself, on healing, on building relationships with people who value me, who believe me, who respect my boundaries. Maybe someday I'll be ready to have a conversation with my mother, to hear Lily's apology, to look my father in the eye again. But it will be on my terms when I'm ready, and with the clear understanding that I'm no longer the family fixer, no longer the bank, no longer the one who sacrifices her own well-being to make everyone else comfortable.